Welcome to Uncovered. It's Wednesday. I'm Anthony, he's Ron, and we're about to uncover the MAGA propaganda not covered by the mainstream and corporate media. Ron, should we start with birthright citizenship? This was a landmark Supreme Court ruling. I suppose you could consider that, considering that Donald Trump has been pushing these birther theories since he tried to remove Barack Obama from his presidency by claiming he wasn't born in America. I mean, this has been beef for Donald Trump for a long while, hasn't it? It's steeped in racism. It's baked into Project 2025. This is something that the Republicans were convinced would be a little bit like the reversal of Roe v. Wade. They thought that this was going to be their moment. And the Supreme Court, despite being packed in favor of the far-right Christian nationalists, sounds so unfair, doesn't it? Because it is. They ruled against Donald Trump's executive order that claimed that birthright citizenship was illegal. What's your take on this?
I was very surprised. I was a little surprised, probably more than a little surprised, at Republican reaction to this decision. That it was so angry and shocked and violently upset, because I think that those of us who paid attention to this and who can read the plain text of the 14th Amendment, and listen to the oral arguments, thought this is really not going to be that close. I think, like, everybody predicted that the Supreme Court was going to rule against Trump's executive order. I think most of us who are not MAGA were surprised that it was so close, that it was 5-4. I think a lot of us thought it was going to be 6-3 at least. So that was a little bit too close for comfort, especially considering that it appears that the 14th Amendment is pretty clear.
Yes.
And we've had 150 some odd years of precedent. I mean, their reaction was they were shocked. They really absolutely thought that this was going to be overturned, which could result in tens of millions of Americans being stripped of their citizenship. They would have lost citizenship today, yesterday.
Yep.
So that's why I really thought that they wouldn't do it, despite the fact that their hardcore right-wing Supreme Court determined to reshape the constitutional landscape of the republic, and they're well on the way to doing that. And they did that in a big way with the Slaughter decision, which we could talk about later. But I mean, for them to reverse birthright citizenship, the number of American citizens that this would have impacted in a severe way, I think probably caused, thankfully, 5 justices to step back away from that.
It's almost too big, isn't it? It's something that logistically would actually be impossible. And whilst Trump and Republicans don't care about, the humanity of these things, I suppose the one thing that you can credit the Supreme Court with is that they do understand that humans require a certain level of rights and access, and you just can't deport 12 million people. It's just not possible. The rest of the world can't absorb it.
I thought one of the concurring opinions from one of the conservative justices was interesting. I think it was Kavanaugh. I don't know. I read like 6 opinions this week, and they're all kind of a blur.
It was a busy week. Yeah.
The odd thing is, like, they're all writing their own opinions. On that particular case, the 4 dissenting justices all wrote separate opinions. Clarence Thomas' dissent was 91 pages, which is like absolutely insane for a dissenting opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, the majority opinion was like 36 pages. So it was 3 times that to say, I don't agree.
Well, Thomas has probably been working on it for 6 months to 10 years. I mean,
it was an angry dissent.
Yeah.
I think Heritage Foundation probably wrote half of it.
Right.
But the one concurrence, which I think was Kavanaugh, basically said that he drew a distinction between who he called illegals, people who are here illegally or have pending asylum claims or something like that, and people who have been here a while and give birth. He said they should actually be citizens, their children. So if you actually read it like that, it was 6-3 as far as for that group of people. But he didn't agree with the so-called birth tourism, the people who come for a very short period of time.
Which is a minuscule number,
and give birth, which is a small number.
Very small number.
So he said he would deny citizenship to that group of people. So I guess if you look at it that way, you could argue it was more of a 6-3 decision.
This is something that they do, and they've done this with immigrants voting. They take something that happens a handful of times and they turn it to be their main policy. And that's the argument for much of the ICE activity and, the voter ID and everything is because of immigrants voting, which happens, literally count on one hand the number of times that happens. And birthright tourism it's increasingly rare. It's increasingly rare. I think there was a time where it happened maybe more when people had more rights. But the reality is it just is so minuscule compared to all of the other issues that they could be working on. Let's look at the response from Republicans, because as you say, it was nuts. And we should probably mention, it's quite important, that Donald Trump has completely ignored this ruling by the Supreme Court and has decided that they're going to achieve it some other way. Now, if that is not an example of this unitary government, this dictatorship, where even a Supreme Court that is packed in favor of MAGA Republicans is ignored in favor of this unitary government doing whatever it wants. And in this case, he claims that he can get it through Congress somehow. I mean, it's bonkers, it's banal and bananas. But the fact that he's even talking about it is so dangerous for democracy and for the republic.
It's the same thing with tariffs. The tariff decision was handed down. You're supposed to refund the tariffs. I don't know that they've been refunded yet. I mean,
about 50 billion's been refunded.
Okay, some have. So I mean, but that took a group had to go to court and relitigate that again, opposed by the Justice Department, even after the Supreme Court decision. So we have seen that is they get a decision. And, he won't come out and blatantly say, I'm not following that decision. But he says, I think we know some ways around it, is what he always says.
Yeah. But what's the point in having a high court if the president is going to ignore their rulings? Whether you like the high court or not, it's there for a reason.
Yep, exactly right. So, it was shocking. I mean, as far as the birthright tourism goes, I mean, we're hearing now across the government from multiple government officials and Republicans that they do not want to grant any tourist visas to any pregnant women.
Yeah. Well, let's look at Sean Davis's post, because this really sums up the kind of Handmaid's Tale aspect of this. He posted several ways forward here, given the choice of Barrett to nullify the 14th Amendment and extra constitutionally replace it with their own language. Number one, nullification. States issue birth certificates and they just stop issuing them to non-citizens. Roberts and Barrett can deal with the fallout and litigate each birth individually. Number two, pack the court. If Roberts wants to be a politician who writes laws instead of a judge, then he can fight with 10 more unelected legislators in robes. Number three, deny entry to all pregnant foreigners. Number four, deny entry to all female foreigners. Number five, require sterilization of all foreign visitors prior to entry. And number six, dissolution of the union, a nation which can't even restrict who gets to be a citizen, isn't even a nation. I mean, Ron, this is... I thought it was a prank when I first read that.
Yeah, and this is not a nobody. He is the CEO and editor-in-chief of the Federalist, not the Federalist Society, but the Federalist, which is a publication website, conservative website. He's an advisor to Trump. He has, I think, something like 350,000 social media followers. So, I mean, he's not just some crank Looney Tune fringe MAGA person out there. This is that tweet that he made got a lot of traction on the right. And he put that out there, but Republican politicians picked up on a lot of those ideas.
Yes.
And we're repeating them and spouting them as well. So this is something that they are very serious about. They're not joking when they're throwing some of these things out. Maybe the sterilization part is not going to happen, but a lot of these other things are going to happen. And I can tell you, you've also heard a lot from Republicans that this gives them more of a sense of urgency to do the mass deportations faster, because they're concerned about people that are in the country right now who are subject to deportation having babies.
It's macabre.
It almost like accelerates their. I mean, not Tom Homan. Mark Wayne Mullen was talking about this. That this decision makes him want to do deportations faster.
Tom Cotton posted, the best response to the court's devastatingly wrong ruling on birthright citizenship is more deportations, a more secure border, and more prosecutions of foreign criminals. I will continue to give the admin the resources needed to deport illegals and protect Arkansans. I've got to get that right, haven't I? Arkansans. I was rehearsing that for my Chris Jones interview, and I got it completely wrong. So we're looking at kind of multiple things here, and I think it's very important that we are clear. You've got Trump and his view and everything else, but I believe, because you just said something very interesting about the guy from the Federalist, the people driving the Supreme Court. The Heritage Foundation we've mentioned a couple of times, the Federalist Society, of course, Leonard Leo, that whole movement as well. These people are not normal by that word that we understand. I mean, really, they are extremists. And this extreme position on these types of issues, I feel like they've been... they've been quiet about it for a while, but they know that they really only have power for maybe a few more months, if at all. And so that's why they're having to push this stuff and get everything through. I mean, if we made a list of all of the horrific far-right nationalist policies that have been crowbarred through in the last 18 months, I mean, we talk about them sporadically, but if you pile them all into one day's worth of legislation, it is incredible what they have managed to achieve. And if you check it off with what Project 2025 was requesting, they've probably done half or 2/3 of it.
Yep. It's quite clear when you listen to them, and you cover them every day, that they understand that they have a 2-year window. They believe that going in, that they were going to lose the House in the midterms, at least the House, possibly even the Senate.
Yeah.
They understood that. And so there was a sense of urgency on their part to get everything through Congress, or have everything done by executive order, have these things litigated in the court quickly. And so, that clearly was their plan. They went in, and that was the whole point of Project 2025, was to have a plan in place, specific plan, ready to go on day one, so you can launch it, so there's no time wasted.
Right.
I would say that the only major thing that hasn't happened is the SAVE Act, sort of national voter ID stuff. But as you can see, Trump and Republicans talk about it every single day, because that's the one thing that's been eluding them.
Yes.
But they pretty much got their whole other agenda through.
Right. And birthright citizenship specifically, this is something that Stephen Miller and, these people are very driven by this stuff. They believe in their soul that America is for Americans and Americans only. I'm quoting him from a recent speech that he made. Because
they don't believe that that being American is this is the fundamental disagreement.
Yeah.
Is that you have one group who I think is most Americans, that at least 60%, that believe being American is not about your heritage, your ancestry. It's about a set of beliefs, a set of ideas, a set of principles. And that as long as you are willing to, take an oath to the Constitution and all, don't try and overthrow the government and all that. I mean, as long as you subscribe to those beliefs, that belief system, and the basic fundamentals of what it is to be an American, you can become an American citizen. It's not about your race, your religion, or your heritage, but they don't view it that way. And you hear them talk about it all the time, that if you don't love America, if you're not loyal to America, if you don't, stand up for America, whatever it is, or if your heritage, if you're not a multi-generational, you don't have multi-generational ties to the country, then you're not a real American. And that stuff has been around for centuries, but it's never really achieved sort of.
Well, they've never got power, majority power.
It's never gotten this kind of momentum where it's you actually have an entire governing party that is, driven by this kind of an agenda.
The irony is that Donald Trump is not American heritage, and he also overthrew the government, or at least tried to, committed an insurrection. So it's like the hypocrisy is very prevalent. Let's look at Stephen Miller, the architect of so much of this stuff, and see what he had to say.
But this is absolutely a deep knife wound in the heart of the American Republic. Look, Jesse, I can step tomorrow onto the deck of a 747. It does not mean that I am the pilot of that plane and I'm qualified to fly it. Just physically being on U.S. soil does not make you a citizen or qualified to carry on or capable of executing the inheritance of this country. We have people from all over the world, from third world nations that on their own would have never invented the wheel, let alone modern technology, let alone medicine, let alone air travel. And they can just come into the country, have a baby at a hospital, paid for by you and me, and then that baby's automatically a citizen. That baby can sit on a jury when he turns 18 and sit in judgment of you, and sit in judgment of me, and sit in judgment of our loved ones, can decide who our mayors are, our governors are, our presidents are.
Yeah. I mean, this is the truth coming out now, as these people are on the back foot, is that, this is just pure racism. There isn't really much to it. And that's what we're hearing. And if he did want to step onto the deck of a 747, aside from Air Force One, the only 747 operating in America will take him to Germany because it's operated by Lufthansa. I mean, I don't know. I get the feeling that these people are really starting to show their true colors. And I don't think it's going to serve them very well, because 77 million people might have voted for Trump, but I don't believe that 77 million people are as racist as this administration is.
No, I don't either. And that's why I like when Stephen Miller is on TV. Unfortunately, he only goes on Fox. He rarely goes on any other networks, because I think that he's so repulsive and repugnant and so obviously racist that he hurts the Republican Party. And, I hope that he plays a prominent role in the midterms and is out there a lot spewing all this hate and bile, because I think that the last poll I saw of like cabinet officials' popularity approval rating, he was definitely at the bottom. I mean, he had like a 23% approval rating or something among the cabinet officials. So he's I mean, what you just saw there is overt racism, basically just saying like the countries that immigrants come from, a lot of immigrants come from, are basically, they couldn't invent they wouldn't even have the wheel.
Yeah. That's how it's so misinformed. It's so misinformed.
It's disgusting. It really is. And so, but these are the people that are running the country. He's the policy director for the White House.
Why do you think Democrats have not done more to have Stephen Miller removed and to put him at the heart of the scandal? Because I honestly think that if you remove characters like Miller and Russ Vought from this administration, I mean, we saw it a bit with Musk coming out and Doge disappearing. I get a sense that we might have less of this insanity.
Well, policy director, the White House is not a cabinet position officially. I think it's not something that has to be confirmed by the Senate. So, there's not much that Congress can do about a political appointee like Stephen Miller. There's really not much. It's the same thing with sort of like a deputy attorney general or a deputy FBI director or something. They're not subject to confirmation, a lot of these appointees. So, there's not much you can do other than, you try and I have always believed that the best thing you can do is amplify them. And I know that a lot of Democrats have disagreed with me over the years about that. They think that the best thing is not to amplify them or, ignore them, et cetera, et cetera. Don't give them oxygen, don't give them publicity. But I actually think, the more the average normal American who's not that political hears from people like Stephen Miller, the more repulsed they're going to be by this administration.
Yeah. There's a certain irony where he's complaining that people could come here, have children that could eventually serve on juries and tell people like him and Jesse Waters what to do. But he is an entirely unelected person who is basically telling the whole country what to do in an unofficial role in the government. I mean, which is worse. It's so hypocritical, and I don't know, I wouldn't mind, but half the things he says are completely false. The argument is so flawed, it's so childish. He is an opportunist and an amateur, and I do wish that the Democrats would talk about him more.
Yeah, and the reason why it's racist is because, look, this has been going on in America for generations. You've always had a huge influx of immigrants, particularly to New York City, by the way, which has always been for a city heavy with first and second generation Americans for hundreds of years, for a couple hundred years now. It's always been that way. But they were white immigrants for the most part. So that's the issue.
But he's one of them.
That's really the issue.
He's one of them.
If we had a huge influx of German, Norwegian, Italian immigrants, Stephen Miller wouldn't be out there saying all this stuff. It's because they're not European. Yeah. And what proves that is the fact that the only asylum seekers that they have admitted since they took office is white South Africans.
And they've increased the number. So they're letting even more white South Africans in. Lauren Bober, she posted her bit. The State Department should immediately cease to give out visas to pregnant applicants. Sorry, birth tourism cannot continue. I mean, again, it's not just the logistics. It's just the insanity of it. It's like, and women, I mean, as we've been talking, women bear the brunt of a lot of these pronouncements. Let's look at Troy Nels.
The fact of the matter is this, is that if the American people are truly, truly going to enjoy the 4th of July, right? You have to love our country, number one. You have to love our country. There's a lot of people. There's a lot of people. Can I tell you something? This is what we got to do. We got to put a bed sheet, a big bed sheet, over the Statue of Liberty. 10 years, 10-year moratorium on immigration. No more. We have to get this under control. The amount of people that are in this country, we don't even know who they are. The tens of millions that came through in the previous administration, we don't know who they are. The people over here on visas, you signed a little deal that says, I come over here for 5 years and then I'm going to leave. They're overstaying their visas. The fact of the matter is, we got to have a 10-year moratorium on immigration, so we got to have a freeze, put a bed sheet over the Statue of Liberty.
Why a bed sheet?
Instead of having a bed sheet, because she's going to need to go to sleep for a while. She got to go to sleep for a while because we're not letting anybody in anymore.
Well, some people think a bed sheet.
I'm not saying it's dead. What I'm trying to say is that instead of having a torch, maybe it needs a stop sign. Maybe we need a little bit of a stop sign.
Well, so I guess if it was a report card, what grade would you give Donald Trump on affordability?
And on affordability, an A, with everything he's dealing with. He's dealing a lot with the previous administration too, and all the stupid things that they did. So no, I give Donald Trump an A plus. I'm celebrating the 4th of July, and the Americans should appreciate the fact we've got the greatest president of my lifetime in the White House, Donald Trump.
Yeah. They're in a cult. I mean, we need to keep reminding people of that. You don't talk like that. You don't say like that. You don't talk about Donald Trump, who just, we've discovered, has made $2.2 billion during this presidency to increase his wealth through crypto and everything else, and say he's the greatest president in the world. Meanwhile, people can't afford groceries. I mean, and where are you going to get a bed sheet that big? I mean, that's one big bed, isn't it?
Yeah, I think what Pablo, our reporter, was trying to get at there was the sheet is the KKK, sort of attire. And I don't think
Yeah.
Troy was understanding that that's where he was going with
Yeah.
with his question. But yeah, I mean, look, when I saw that clip, and I hear the arrogance of these people, especially on the affordability question, by the way. And I know we're talking about immigration right now, but you hear so many Republicans just would sneer at the affordability, at the fact that people are suffering, people are struggling to pay their bills. They literally don't care, and they more and more say they don't care. I mean, they come right out and they're just like, who cares, and I just thought you could never get away with that in a swing district. It's because of the gerrymandering.
Yes.
These guys and women, are in these safe districts that are like 78% Republican,
right,
where they could say anything as long as they worship Trump. It doesn't matter. They can do anything. They can say anything, and they still win their races. So as long as they don't cross Trump, that's the only thing that costs them their seats, is when they cross Trump. Trump goes after them with a primary opponent, and they're out. So that's the culture of the Republican Party now. We have to follow Trump, and we can basically just not care about anything. We don't care about legislating. We don't care about people's lives. Another example is the guy who just showed up from New Jersey, Dean. I mean, the guy disappears for 4 months and shows up and acts like nothing happened. But that he's in a swing district, so he's got to be careful. But that is my point. I think it's just the reason why they get away with saying some of these absurd, extreme things is I look at every single one that says that, and I look at their district, and it's almost universally like an R plus 25 or an R plus 30 district.
Yeah. Todd Blanche has spoken up. He said federal prosecutors and law enforcement officers will focus on combating so-called birth tourism. He says there's other things that DHS can do and the federal government can do in the visa process and the application process to try to minimize or limit the opportunity of folks coming here not to visit and not to do what they're saying they're going to on the tourist visa, but just to have a baby that can then become a U.S. citizen. That's what he said just a few minutes ago.
The other thing that they're going to do is they're going to deport their parents, and that's the other thing. They're going to make them choose. They're going to make people choose. It's like you may have had a baby here. The baby might be 2 years old, 5 years old, 7 years old, but we're going to deport you. So you have a choice. You can go back to your country and leave your baby here, or you can go back to your country and take your baby with you. But we are deporting you, regardless of the fact that you have children that are American citizens. That we're going to see much more in the next year or two.
It's so dark. I mean, it really is the darkest period, considering that internationally America thrives off of its openness towards immigrants and historically has done. And I know they've opened the close of the taps a little bit over the years, but Stephen Miller was allowed to get in. Well, he was born here, but I told you I dug out his grandmother's book. She wrote a book about the family traveling from Eastern Europe to America on a ship. And they're very proud of their heritage. And unfortunately, he got radicalized. And so the kind of bile that he spews is directly contrary to his own family story.
Yeah, I think about this all the time because I'm first generation on my father's side, but 14th generation on my mother's side. And I look at the two sides of the family and the way that they look at the immigration issue. And my mother's side of the family, which came here in 1636, is much more anti-immigration than my father's side, which my father was born in Europe. So, it's definitely, I think you see that a lot. There's a lot more empathy towards immigration from first generation Americans. But, once you get to that second, third generation, all of a sudden it's like, pull up the ramp behind you.
Yeah.
Don't let anybody else in.
Yeah.
And they forget how they got here, how their family got here.
I mean, a guy in my family, again, immigrants from decades ago, was killed in 9/11. His name is on the memorial. does that mean that my family is illegitimate? It's like you become part of the fabric of the nation by being here and contributing, you know, and in his case, being a fire marshal and going back in to save people and not being able to save himself. I mean, if you want to dig deep into the stories, everybody has a connection.
What we have seen over this decades is, you know, first generation Americans and children of immigrants are some of the most loyal, patriotic Americans there are.
Yeah.
Hardworking, you know, they don't take America for granted in any way. So they act like, you know, that these immigrants they don't care about America. They just want to come and use America. They want to get things from America. They want to go on welfare. They want to get government benefits. They don't want to work. That's the way that they view immigrants, when every metric shows you that quite the opposite is true.
Let's talk about, you mentioned Tom Keene earlier. Let's talk about him resurfacing for a moment, because we have some interesting clips. How many months was he away for? Was it 6 months or?
Almost 4 months. It was
almost 4 months.
March 5th to June 30th. So 6 days shy of 4 months.
Right.
He completely disappeared.
Right. And he claims that his absence from the house was due to depression. Let's take a look.
This is not an easy speech for me to give. I am a private person by nature, and I have spent most of my life talking about the people that I represent, the issues facing our communities, and the work that continues to be done. Talking about myself has never come naturally. But I believe that I owe an explanation to the people of New Jersey's 7th District, to my colleagues in this chamber, and to the American people for my absence. Several months ago, due to health concerns, I entered the hospital for some testing. I did not believe that this would result in a long-term stay. I was given the diagnosis of depression. Now, when people hear the word depression, many people think it means feeling sad. But depression is so much more than that. It is physical. It is emotional. And until you experience it yourself, it is difficult to fully understand how powerful this illness can be. The doctors recommended that I remain in the hospital to address my illness. They explained to me that this would be the fastest way to recovery. And to be honest,
I won't play it all because it's quite long, but I mean, this is interesting, isn't it? Because I'll put it very simply, is that the Republicans have never cared much for mental health. It's something they've abused and ridiculed and not taken seriously for decades, and there are very few provisions in public health care to actually make allowances for it and to support people who have depression. And yet this is the excuse that this guy's giving in this case. What is your take on it?
I don't buy it. I don't buy it. Okay, so, you know, I practiced law for 28 years doing criminal work, and you know, I worked every day with people with depression, who are mentally ill, who are drug addicts, sometimes both, often both, and so I'm pretty good at sort of picking up the signs of what's going on with someone based on their behavior and what is being presented to the doctor here, you know, from the patient. And I'm not buying that this was Keene just showing up at the hospital, being diagnosed with depression, and then being checked into a hospital. He claims that he was at a hospital for nearly 4 months every day.
Yeah.
Thank God he has, you know, good for him that he has the medical insurance that they have, because that bill had to have been astronomical. But I think that from reading the reaction of a lot of the mental health professionals who deal with depression, they're not buying it either, because this isn't typically the way that someone is treated for it. So what we see also often is people who have this often self-medicate, and they self-medicate with substance abuse. So his disappearance for this long of a period of time, all of a sudden, and being in a hospital, is much more consistent with someone who may have had depression, but was using drugs to deal with that depression. I'm not accusing him of that. I'm just saying the signs, the outward signs point more to that.
To rehab.
Just depression. Because look, the guy disappeared.
Yeah.
He didn't come out and say, look, I'm dealing with, like Fetterman did, as much as I despise Fetterman. Fetterman came out and said, look, I've got depression. I'm dealing with it. I'm putting it out there. By the way, Fetterman today regrets doing that. Which is part of like the one noble sort of honorable thing he's done since elected to Senate. He now says he wish he had never done, because he said it's been weaponized against him. I know of no Democrats who have weaponized his depression against him. I don't. We criticize him for a lot of things. We don't criticize him for talking about his depression.
Sure.
But Keene could have done that. He could have come out and said, look, I'm dealing with this. I've got depression. I've got to get some help for it. And no one would have said a word. No one would have had a problem. But the guy just simply disappeared. Not only did he disappear, finally, like 2 months later, when the media starts reporting, hey, where's Tom Keene? He issues a statement through like his attorney saying, I can't tell you what it is. He wouldn't even say it was depression or anything else or mental health. I can't tell you what it is, but I promise when I'm better, I'll come clean and tell you what it's all about. So this is a member of Congress who disappears for 4 months, then comes out and says, I had depression. It's like, here's the other problem for him. He's in a swing district. He's in a 50-50 district. And the reason why he won, he defeated Tom Malinowski, who was a member of Congress, Democrat, defeated him a couple years ago in 2022.
Yeah.
So it's a 50-50 district. He's got a different opponent now. And so he's a very vulnerable member of Congress. So that feeds into it too. If you're vulnerable and Democrats are going after you and making you like their number one target, you don't disappear 4 months before your reelection.
Yeah.
So there's so much here that is just simply not adding up. And also at a time when Republicans have like a 2 or 3 seat majority, you disappear. Something's not adding up here.
The other thing that I picked up on from the openings of his speech, and I speak as somebody who has struggled with mental health throughout my life at various times, is that you become through the work that you do on yourself, and through the counsel and the all of the therapies and everything else, you become very self-aware, and you really get a sense of like who you are and what you need and what makes you. What to avoid and how to have the best quality of life.
Yep.
And he didn't speak like somebody who had been enlightened.
Nope.
He didn't speak like, and also just talking about, I went to the doctors and they said that, it's a physical thing and they checked me out and they did tests. Well, you don't have tests if you've got mental health problems. Very unusual that you would have tests. Like, what tests are we talking about here? So it just didn't make any sense to me. And his whole demeanor was not of the type, and anybody who's had mental health issues will immediately recognize that he was speaking like a layman.
The other thing he said is that he didn't feel comfortable telling anybody about this because he's such a private person and an introvert. And I'm like, what? Hold on a second. I looked into his background. So far as I can tell, this guy's never had a real job. This guy's been in politics his entire life. His father was the governor of New Jersey. His grandfather was in politics. His great-grandfather was in. This guy's family's been in politics since like the Mayflower landed. And he's been in elected politics in statewide. He was like a state rep, then a state senator for many, many years. So literally this guy's entire life has been in the public eye,
right,
and in elected politics.
Yep.
So now he's going to come and say, oh, I wasn't honest with people and forthcoming with people about the issues because I'm a very private person.
Yeah.
Well, you might be in the wrong profession if you want to be that private about how you spend your days.
Let's see what Lauren Boebert had to say about him.
I think it's embarrassing still, even more so. I mean, sure, like take care of yourself, get healthy, but who gets to take 4 months off of work because they're sad? Like that's
well,
not.
It might not be sad. I mean, it's
depressed. He's depressed. He's sad, And okay, whatever the reasons may be, it's embarrassing. I don't care what party you're a part of. It's not okay. I mean, I think there's a dose of depression that comes with these pins that we're given. And so, I mean, if you can't build up a tolerance to it, then maybe don't be here.
Yeah, but a perfect example of somebody who knows nothing about depression.
I mean, that's the Republican mentality.
Yeah, conflating it with sadness for a start, and then going, well, we're all a little bit depressed because we wear these pins. I mean, so insulting to half the country, isn't it?
I mean, I cover Donald Trump every day. If you're not depressed, you know, when you're doing that.
Well, but there is a collective
abuse.
Yeah, there is I mean, I've written about this and talked about it. There is a collective funk that I'm experiencing presently that has been going on for 18 months, which is just the daily abuse of the democracy and the deconstruction of the country and the loss of rights and people being scapegoated and us being
experiencing any of that.
Right, us being gaslit. That's the worst, you know, being gaslit by the authorities. Is just terrifying. So, yeah, there is good reason to be depressed, but there is a difference between clinical depression and feeling a little bit sad. I mean, I read today that 7 more people have been sentenced over this protest outside the Texas detention center, another 50-year sentences to, you know, and the guy's wife had already had the same term. And it's like, it really knocked me back because I was like, this is just not right. Free protest, free speech, free country, 50 years in prison.
Yeah, I mean, I have the thickest armor you could possibly have. I think, you know, 30 years doing criminal law and being in and out of prisons, dealing with murderers and drug traffickers and everything else. I mean, I could take a lot, but yeah, there's even times when like I gotta turn it off. I can't watch another Trump speech. I can't read another Trump True Social post. So I totally get, you know, where people are coming from who say, you know, they're overwhelmed by all of this. And we see that, you know, we hear that a lot. We read that in our comments on social media and all in our Substacks and all that. We hear it all the time.
All the time.
You know.
So and we are here for people. I mean, that's the other thing is that this community is what keeps me going, because I know that there are enough people who feel the same and have this kind of collective sadness. But the thing with Tom Keene is he's on the wrong team to use that as an excuse.
Exactly. I mean, he's not the right. Yeah, I don't know what is the source of his depression. I mean, I don't understand clinical depression doesn't necessarily have to be triggered by anything bad. You know, it's just something you have.
Yeah.
But like you said, he doesn't talk like someone who's just been through 4 months of therapy.
Yeah.
In no way does he sound like that. He basically what he tried to, he shows up after 4 months and he basically says, I'm a victim of a medical condition and therefore, you know, that's it. It's over. We're all good. And the thing is, here's the other part. Reporters tried to ask him questions when he showed up. And he wouldn't answer any questions when he arrived. He got up on the floor. He read his prepared speech. He left. Reporters again tried to ask him questions. He refused to answer any questions again. So this is somebody who's pledged full transparency, who hasn't answered a single question about this in 4 months.
I mean, the plot thickens with these people. You know, there's always something. Okay, we've got a couple of options now. Maybe we should talk about the House and this SAVE Act that Donald Trump is trying to crowbar in, because he was supposed to sign off on the housing bill. He doesn't get veto power on it, as we now know. And Mike Johnson, we talked last week a little bit about the fact that he's going to, you know, just going to get that passed anyway. But Trump's leverage was the SAVE Act has to be included, or he's not signing it off. Mike Johnson is trying to kick this one into the long grass, isn't he?
It's really unbelievable how well, it's not unbelievable that he won't let this go, but it's unbelievable the lengths he's going. I mean, It shows you how they know without all the gerrymandering nonsense and without some other hijinks like SAVE Act, They understand that they're going to lose. They understand what's going out there. He gets reports from his pollster, Tony Fabrizio, of what's going on in a country. And Tony tells him the truth. And despite the fact that Trump gets out there and claims, I got the highest poll numbers ever, everybody loves me, nobody cares about affordability, Fabrizio tells Trump the truth. So Trump knows the truth. He's aware of what the mood is in the country. He acts like it's not the case, but he knows.
Yeah.
So that's why he's so desperate to get this federalization of elections passed, that he's willing to torpedo everything. And he's taken it to the next level, because it's one thing to do this to a bipartisan housing bill. And yes, Mike Johnson said apparently Trump has decided he's not going to veto it. He's just going to let it become law in 10 days. It went to his desk yesterday, and he's not going to prevent this from becoming law. But remember, Republicans wanted that moment. They had the big signing ceremony. They had all the flags set up. They had the podium. All the press was there. And this was the first thing that they were going to do about affordability.
Right.
And this was going to be the thing that they were going to use riding into the midterms.
Well, it's all they had. They didn't have anything else.
They had nothing else. Caroline Leavitt was touting it. This is historic bipartisan legislation that's going to lower housing costs. They blew it all up. Mike Johnson's on stage, Scalise, and then Trump literally like 10 minutes before the big ceremony says, I'm not coming, blows it all up. So now they can't use those vibes. They can't use those optics. He took that away from congressional Republicans, again, showing he doesn't care about their future. Now what he's doing is hamstringing the military, because the National Defense Authorization Act is currently being jammed up, along with his latest bailout for farmers by the SAVE Act, because Trump and Anna Paulina Luna is insisting that they take the SAVE Act and attach it to the defense bill, which pays for the Iran war, replenishes our stockpiles, and by the way, bails out farmers who are allegedly, affected by the Iran war. So you're going to take this poison pill that cannot pass the Senate, that it has at best, on its best day, 47 votes, and it needs 60. And you're going to say, we're shutting down the House, as they did again. The House is shut down again because of this demand that this be attached to the NDAA, which is absolute insanity. And the NDAA is not just money for the Iran war. It's considered like a must-pass bill because it includes a lot of critically necessary stuff to maintain certain elements of the military and keep them running to keep America safe. And that's all being jammed up right now by the SAVE Act. So we went from jamming up the housing bill to now jamming up the NDAA and the farm bailout. I don't care about the more military spending or the farm bill either, but Republicans in Congress do.
Well, they need something for November.
They're being tanked at every turn. They're being tanked by Donald Trump.
Yeah, they've got no policies to tout for November apart from closing the border. Meredith Lee Hill reported Speaker Mike Johnson confirms his plan to the MIRV, the Save America Act, with the NDAA after the House passes the defense policy bill. Senate GOP leaders have warned this. Attaching Save to NDAA after it passes the House will sink the bill in the Senate. I have to do my job in the House, and they've got to do their job in the Senate, so we'll see what happens, Johnson says. We'll see what happens is a phrase that I only hear in American politics. We'll see what happens. Trump's been saying it for years.
He knows what's going to happen.
Yeah.
He knows what's going to happen is the Senate is going to... the way our Constitution, our government's supposed to work is the House passes spending bills, and then the Senate either passes them or amends them and sends them back to the House.
Right.
That's not the way this is operating under Mike Johnson. What happens is the House tries to pass spending bills. They fail, they go nowhere, and then the Senate has to pick it up and pass it themselves and send it to the House. It's actually like the reverse of how it's supposed to work because the House is so dysfunctional. And the other thing is that the reason why they want to do it as an amendment to the National Defense Authorization Act is because that is not subject to the filibuster, because it is a financial bill along with the farm bailout. It's strictly budgetary, which means it only needs 50 votes to pass. So this is their new idea. Okay, we can't get saved through the Senate filibuster because we need 60 votes. Let's attach it to the military bill. Then we only need 50 votes. Well, they know what's going to happen. The Senate parliamentarian will rule that the SAVE Act is not fiscal and strip it out. That's what they're talking about. But it's not even the parliamentarian that's going to do it this time. John Thune is going to take it out. Right. He's already said that. So Mike Johnson's solution when confronted by that problem is to just say, well, you know what? We're going to pass it and send it over there anyway. We'll see what happens. You've already been told what's going to happen. So that leads to just chaos and gridlock. But, you know, that's Johnson's leadership style.
Let's see what Representative Anna Paulina Luna had to say about it.
All the above. Why not do the MERV and why not put voter ID plus proof of citizenship, which is literally a 90-10 issue. Everyone in the country wants this. Every time we are traveling, every time people call my office, every time I do, this is a fundamental thing that makes every American feel like our elections, our vote matters, and that they're safe and secure. And so to say that this isn't germane to something called the National Defense Authorization Act, as a veteran, this is fundamental in securing our elections and has to do with national security, okay? So I'm not betting on it, but I'm not the only one. There was other issues that other members had, but the fact that I'm being singled out because I know procedure, I'm not stupid. I'm going to fight on behalf of the American people. And as you saw with the Supreme Court rulings in the last couple of days, this is a very important issue. So I'm saying I will vote for the rule if you allow my amendment for voter ID plus proof of citizenship to be placed into the text of the NDAA. They're saying they won't, so now you saw what happened on the floor.
The Senate's planning on passing their own version of it.
Yeah.
Well, the last part, you'll see what's happened is Mike Johnson sent everybody home again early on Tuesday.
Recess.
As he always does. That's
the
solution. When they get jammed up, send everybody home for a couple more weeks.
That's right. Yeah, they're not going to be back till like the 16th or something. I mean,
let the Senate, let John Thune figure it out. He'll deal with it. Yeah.
This is not a way to run a government. It's not a way to run a country. It is being done in the most criminal of ways. And there's always been corruption in politics. But this is so dirty. All of this is just so dirty. And I mean, is it the fact that they're so desperate for the SAVE Act, and this is, voter ID, voter suppression, and all of this stuff? Are they so desperate for that because they know that without it, they stand a good chance to lose in the midterms?
Yes, and that is correct. But let's also remember, because what she said there is 90% or 85%. Yes, but that's not of the public want some form of ID to be presented in order for somebody to be able to vote. Okay. Or want to make sure that American citizens vote. Yes, that is true. However, that's not what the SAVE Act is. The SAVE Act is nationalizing elections. It is so much more. When you get into the details of how it's going to work, how exactly is the federal government going to make sure that every local election office around the country is complying with the SAVE Act? You have to nationalize the elections. It's the only way to do it. Yeah. You basically force every local elections clerk to report to the federal government, the FBI, the Justice Department, who knows how it would work, what agency would be in charge, DHS, and they would essentially take over elections and have oversight over local elections, which has never happened in the history of the United States. Right. That's what the SAVE Act is. So when they keep talking about, hey, 80% of the country favors this, no, they haven't been polled on how the SAVE Act is going to work. Yes. They've just been asked about, should people show ID to register?
Well, do you want elections to be more secure? I think is the question they get asked.
You can frame the question any way you want to get 85%.
Yeah, it's always a loaded question. Okay, listen, we have to take a quick break, but I want to come back, and there's so much to talk about. I want to talk about Zoran Mamdani and Trump claiming he's a communist, and the state fair. You didn't go to the state fair, I take it? I mean, nobody went to the state fair. It's like 12 people were there, but we'll look at some of the pictures next here on Uncovered. A weird thing happened to me a couple of years ago. I was doing everything the same workouts, same diet, same schedule, but somehow everything felt harder. I'd get to the gym and I'd just feel flat. I'd wake up tired, even after a full night's sleep. Nothing dramatic, just that feeling like you're constantly pushing a car uphill. And nobody really talks about this stuff. You just assume that you're getting older and that's how it's supposed to be. Then I started looking into testosterone health and learned that a lot of men start seeing changes after 30. That's when I found Mars Men. What I like about Mars Men is it's not injections or anything crazy. It's made with natural ingredients like Tongat Ali, Shilajit, vitamin D, zinc, boron, and much more. It's designed to help your body optimize energy, focus, strength, and stamina. Personally, I've noticed more consistent energy throughout the day and better recovery after workouts. It's not like chugging coffee. It's more of a steady feeling that you're ready to get things done. And it's made right here in the USA, third-party tested with a 90-day money-back guarantee. For a limited time, our listeners get 50% off for life, plus free shipping and 3 free gifts at mengotomars.com. That's mengotomars.com for 50% off and 3 free gifts when you check out. After you purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Getting older changes the way you think about lots of things. I used to think life insurance was one of those I'll deal with it later kind of tasks, until I started hearing stories from friends who'd lost a parent unexpectedly and saw how stressful everything became for the family left behind. That really shifted my mindset, because life insurance isn't really about you. It's about helping you give the people you love some financial security if something unexpected happens. And honestly, I always assumed that getting coverage would be this huge process with appointments and paperwork and all that stuff, but Ethos makes getting life insurance fast and easy, 100% online. You can get a quote in seconds, apply in minutes, and even get same-day coverage. There's no medical exam. You just answer a few simple health questions online. You can get up to $3 million in coverage, and some policies are as low as $30 a month. What I like is that it removes a lot of the friction that normally keeps people from getting this stuff done in the first place. Take 10 minutes to get covered today with life insurance through Ethos. Get your free quote at ethos.com/uncovered. That's ethos.com/uncovered. Application times may vary, rates may vary. And you can find links to our sponsors down in the description below. The theme of this next item, Ron, is saying the quiet parts out loud, because we have a few clips. This is regarding Trump and the housing bill, and even Mike Johnson kind of admitting that there's some kind of campaign in Congress, like to buy people's protection, or the protection of various members of Congress, where I really felt like the quiet parts were finally being said out loud. Stuff that we've been talking about for years, they are finally admitting to. Let's take a quick look.
Say, I am on the ballot, because in a real sense he is. If we were to lose the midterms, heaven forbid, these Democrats, y'all, impeachment's not even the big concern. They will turn every committee of Congress into an investigative body, and they'll go after the president's family, the cabinet, his donors and friends. Half of you in this room will be targeted. I run the protection program. I'll take care of you, okay? We're going to win. We're going to win the midterm, okay? All right?
So what is this protection program? How do you read that? Because to me, that was something that should have remained inside his head. And actually, it was, to me, an admission that they are running some kind of racket.
Well, he's speaking to a Republican audience there, about the midterms. And yeah, he said the quiet part out loud, which is what he's saying is, look, right now, the Trump administration is enjoying no oversight whatsoever. Yeah. Nothing.
Yeah.
All the committees in this House and the Senate are completely controlled by Republicans. They decide what hearings are held, what gets investigated. So all the corruption, Trump's pardons, all the grift, his children and himself profiting off the presidency, all the horrible things going on behind the scenes with the Doge and everything else. None of it is, Congress investigates none of it. All the stuff with the military that Hegseth is doing with women and running generals out of the military. You haven't had any House or Senate armed services meetings on that. giving partisan political speeches to the troops, no hearings on that, no hearings on anything. Why we have Witkoff and the president's son-in-law running around the world, running our foreign policy. We've had no hearings on the Iran war, or why we bombed the babies in Iran, or why our troops got killed overseas. You know, we Venezuela, why we're stealing their oil. Where's all the money going from the Venezuelan oil? We could go on and on. I could literally list you 1,000 things that need to be investigated.
Yeah.
Okay. I do every day. And none of it is being investigated. And they're proud of that. They're saying the reason why the Trump administration is able to do all this stuff and get away with it and pay no consequence is because both houses of Congress are controlled by his party, who will not do anything. And that's what he's saying. He's saying, I'm the protection racket. That's what he's saying. I protect you. You guys would all be being investigated right now. There would be hearings. There would be subpoenas. You'd be dragged in to testify. But the reason why none of that is happening is because of me, Mike Johnson. I protect you. I'm your protection racket, is basically what he said. He's basically saying, I'm a mob boss protecting you. And you pay your tribute to me and I'll run interference.
Right.
So that's what he's saying. And so it's like, okay, so if you're an American citizen and you like Republicans to do whatever they want to do and all the corruption and everything with no hearings, then by all means, go ahead and reelect these people. Because the only way that we're going to get, so many people ask me all the time, how can we stop this? What can we do about this? I mean, my Substack comments, those are half the comments. Are, you know, what can we do? Well, the most fundamental thing we can do besides court cases and lawsuits is oversight, congressional oversight, congressional subpoenas. We don't even have subpoena power. So that's the first thing. And that's what Mike Johnson is talking about right there.
I want to remind people to vote because, and I was talking about this on the weekend show just gone, with Corey Brett Schneider, who's a political scientist. I was saying, you know, why do we not hear more campaigns about, you know, get out the vote? This idea that the vote is the only thing that really people have left, and that, you know, we're talking about, if we want oversight, the route to oversight is a vote. A mass vote, and turnout, which was, I thought, pretty pathetic in the primaries and was terrible last time. You know, half the people maybe think about going to vote, and I appreciate that Republicans make it more difficult than ever to vote, and sometimes going to a polling place is a million miles away, or you can't get time off work because hours are so short. I understand that, but I just don't see this. I don't see a kind of national campaign that really pushes people to prioritize voting, putting it in their calendar now, taking the day off, using up a sick day, something that secures Democrats in the midterms. Because the only way that Republicans are going to lose is if this is too big to rig. And the turnout is so massive that all of the gerrymandering and all of the redistricting and all of the craziness that they're doing behind the scenes, the purging and everything else, is overwhelmed by Democrats who traditionally are too lazy to vote, but this time have had enough of fascism.
Yeah, unfortunately, our attention spans or our memories are short. You know, everybody was so motivated to show up and vote against Trump in 2020. There was that anger. There was that there was just, people were camped out months ahead of time, right? And we lost that in 2024. It's like and that was before January 6th, that anger was there.
Yes.
And, you know, 4 years goes by and all of a sudden, you know, a big chunk of the American public, let's bring the old crazy guy back. You know, we're bored. You know, we need some entertainment, you know, and it's like how short their memory was about the way it was last time. And now a lot of those same people are like, oh my God, I didn't think it was going to be this bad. Well, you didn't, you should have. Right. I don't know what planet you're on, but the fact of the matter is so many of these people never watch the news, never watch cable. You know, they just They don't read anything. They are living their daily lives. And I mean, you could do this in your daily life if you want, you know, try and strike up a conversation about politics with so many average Americans, and most of them don't know anything that's going on. You could ask them about the political news that happened yesterday. They have no idea.
Yeah.
And that's the reality. But, you know, I'll say this too. People get discouraged by the amount of money in politics. And that's another, by the way, if you want to poll something to get 85%, is there too much money in politics? Yes. But, you know, since Citizen United blew the lid off, and in the most recent, we had another bad decision from the Supreme Court this week about that, you know, basically just allowing unlimited spending. But the thing is, that can't get anybody discouraged, because we have seen so many examples of people that campaigns that outspent their opponents 10-1, 12-1, 14, and lost.
Yes.
I mean, that's happened many times. So I don't think that you should get discouraged by the fact that Republicans may have more money or the incumbency or whatever. If people are angry enough and mad enough and show up, they can defeat any amount of money, you know. But it just, unfortunately, we have to get to these crisis levels before people will show up and vote. A lot of people.
It is hard with a country of 340 million people, and I do recognize that. And I think, you know, in smaller countries, and certainly my experience of Europe and the UK, with nobody really knows how many people are in the UK, but it's somewhere between 60 and 80 million.
I always thought it was 80 million. Yeah,
right, but it's a small country, and therefore we have a thing called the national conversation, which is driven by the tabloid newspapers and the news and the radio, and everyone's talking about the same thing. And it's quite hard not to be engaged in politics when you've got such a small country. And this is repeated around Europe. But I think part of that kind of sense of freedom in the US is the scale and the fact that you can basically go missing. You know, you can isolate yourself to the point that you can really not come into contact with the authorities.
Yeah, and the theme you hear from these people all the time is, well, all the politicians are the same. They're both terrible. They're both bad. So it doesn't really matter. It doesn't affect my life.
Yeah, and none of that is true.
Kinds of things you hear from those low info voters.
Yeah, and that is just laziness on their part, because I can assure you that when they've had a couple of drinks, they'll do a whole lot of complaining about things that they didn't realize they could potentially change with their vote. But anyway, let's go back to saying the quiet parts out loud, because Donald Trump has also said the quiet parts out loud when it comes to the housing bill and the SAVE Act for voter suppression. Let's have a look.
What are your plans for the housing bill, Mr. President?
I don't know. I think it's so unimportant by compared to the Save America Act. I think the Save America Act is exactly what it says. It's saving America from crooked elections. And the housing bill is a bill that can get approved. They worked on it long and hard. It's very bipartisan. That means the Democrats like it. I think it's maybe even it's probably maybe more that way. They're getting things that I wouldn't necessarily agree to. Nobody knows more than housing in the history of the presidency. Nobody did well like me in housing. I made a lot of money. I made a lot of money with housing. But when I look at that bill, it's a bill. But when I look at the Save America Act, it's about saving America. And I'd like to have the Save America Act added on. That's probably not going to happen, because we have 4 Republican senators, maybe 5, that just won't vote for it. It's crazy. Somebody, Lisa Murkowski from Alaska. Nobody's done more for Alaska than me. She's Trump deranged. What can I tell you?
That guy is barely upright these days. You know, he has no inner monologue, as we know, but this is what he really cares about: rigging the election. He just wants to rig the election, and he knows that the SAVE Act is his route to that.
So nobody knows more about housing than me. When has Donald Trump ever built affordable housing for anyone?
I know.
Donald Trump builds luxury residences and towers that people pay $1 million for.
Yeah.
You know, an apartment. That's what Donald Trump builds in golf course resorts.
Yeah.
You know, he doesn't build affordable housing. I mean, his father was a slumlord, if you want to count that, you know, but no, that's not what so I mean, for Donald Trump to sit there and go, oh, first of all, the housing bill has nothing to do with the SAVE Act. Nothing. They're two separate things. So to conflate, he's asked about the housing bill. Why won't you sign the housing bill? Why don't you care about the housing bill? And he said, I don't care. It's nothing. It doesn't mean anything to him. He said that in another clip. You know, he just absolutely doesn't care about it.
Yeah.
This is a bill that was hammered out. The classic compromise bill, which contains half of the housing bill is stuff that Republicans wanted, which is like a lot of deregulation of the construction industry that builds housing and streamlining of the permitting process and a lot of the red tape. That's the stuff Republicans wanted. And it's got a lot of stuff that Democrats wanted, preventing large corporations from buying up all the affordable housing and turning it into Airbnbs and rentals. You know, I mean, there's so much in there that both sides wanted that it passed overwhelmingly, like 90% in the House and Senate. And Trump and in the White House touted this as a signature achievement of Donald Trump. Leavitt was out there saying this was one of the most landmark pieces of legislation in American history.
Right. Meanwhile, he doesn't know anything about it.
And he doesn't even know anything about it and doesn't care about it.
He doesn't give...
And it's like the emperor. You really should. It's like the Oz moment where you're seeing Oz behind the curtain. You're seeing the emperor. All his minions are out there claiming that this is something that Trump cares passionately about. We're seeing he obviously couldn't care less. He cares about the SAVE Act because he's trying to save himself. That's what the SAVE Act is about.
Bingo.
It's not about saving America. It's about saving Donald Trump.
Right. And allowing the grift to continue. Let's have another look.
100, 300, 400, 500%. You know that.
But will you sign that housing bill?
I have not. It hasn't been sent to me yet. It's coming, I understand. And then I'll make it. Here's what I would like to sign. Much more than a bill that big deal. It's a yawn. Some people say it's wonderful. To me, compared to the Save America Act, just about everything is a big yawn.
I mean, this is also the dementia talking now. And anybody who's had elderly relatives who have Alzheimer's or dementia, you know, anything that's not the SAVE Act is just a big yawn. To say something like that, this is frontal lobe stuff happening here. This is a man with dementia who has no filter.
Right.
And also happens to be the president of the United States.
Yeah, I mean, he used to be aware of the things that he believed and thought in his head were that he couldn't say. Or he had to say it differently or obfuscate because he knew that his thoughts in his head were bad and most people were not going to like them.
Yes.
But that filter's gone, as you say, that more and more we're seeing that filter gone. Where he just, because I think part of it is the dementia, but part of it is he just doesn't care anymore. He couldn't care less about public opinion. He doesn't care what people think anymore. There was a time when he cared. He doesn't care anymore. And so this is a housing bill. We have a serious problem of housing being too expensive in this country and young people not being able to afford a home. And Republicans are constantly screaming about the younger generation to have more kids, have more children. And it's a demographic problem. And it's going to hurt the workforce. It's going to hurt employers. It's going to hurt Social Security because we don't have enough young people paying into the system. It's going to bankrupt Social Security. There's a lot of problems with people not having kids. And what you hear over and over again from those people is we can't afford it. We can't afford to the old days, you know, of the baby boomer generations, even Gen X, where, you know, you're having kids in your late 20s, early 30s and buying a home, they're not able to do. And this housing bill addresses the systemic problems that has cropped up in the housing industry over the last 20 years that has led to this problem. And Trump couldn't care less. And he says he doesn't care.
Well, he's checked out. He's just made $2.2 billion on crypto He's never been a public servant. He's always been a showman and an opportunist because of his ailments and his illnesses and potentially other things. As Ted Lieu mentioned, the drug, goodness knows what is going on with Donald Trump. He doesn't have the head for it. The only thing he's interested in is that new plane and making it as far as, the end of this term.
Well, hold on.
Yeah.
He's interested in a lot more than that. The ballroom.
Oh, well, yes.
The fireworks show, the flyover, parades,
the
triumphal arch.
Yes.
The golf courses he's remodeling.
Yes.
Putting more gold in the White House.
Yes.
I mean, there's a lot he's interested
You're right.
in.
I apologize. I completely misread.
It's not fair.
Yeah. I mischaracterized him, and I can only apologize. Representative Randy Fine had something to say on this housing bill, too. Let's have a look.
Start with the housing bill. So once Congress officially sends this to the White House, the president has 10 days to either sign it, veto it, or do nothing here. So where it becomes a law without a signature. Now, the president tweeted that he doesn't like some elements of this bill. You were one of 32 House Republicans to vote against the Senate version. So if he vetoes it, what do you think happens here?
Well, I don't know. I mean, look, my issue was if Elizabeth Warren thinks a bill is great, then it probably isn't. And that's sort of how I looked. But the enthusiasm with which Democrats had for this bill got me spooked. And I didn't come to Washington to work with Democrats. I came to Washington to beat them. So that was where I was. As for the president, he'll do what he thinks is best, and I trust his judgment. I certainly hope if he chooses to veto the bill, Republicans will not choose to override him. And certainly I won't be one of those doing that.
So I get it.
Randy Fine also saying the quiet parts out loud. I didn't come to Washington to work with Democrats. I came to beat them. There it is, Ron, in a nutshell.
The most unsung or unheralded member of the three Midas brothers, Jordy, made a really good, nice point about this, which I thought was very insightful. Jordy doesn't get enough credit for I will say he's like the morale guy in the Midas empire. Is he keeps everybody positive, and motivated. And so I think that's a big part of his job. There's other things, but that's a big part of his job. But every once in a while, he serves up an original take, and he had a good one on this, which is what he believes is it's not just about the SAVE Act. What he thinks is that Trump's cronies in the housing industry made some phone calls.
Yes.
And they don't like this bill.
No.
And so, but Trump doesn't want to say that. And so Jordy thinks that, him claiming I'm not going to sign this because of the SAVE Act, that might be part of it. But in reality, his buddies in big housing don't like this bill.
Interesting. I mean, I would have thought it benefits them more if their industry is being deregulated, but who only knows?
In some ways, yeah.
Let's talk about communism. You and I are clearly communists and socialists and Marxists and everything else. If Donald Trump...
But one more thing on that before I forget.
Yes.
One of Trump's closest members of his administration, who's in his administration now, is the founder of Airbnb and their
That's
former...
right.
He's in the Trump administration.
That's right.
And this housing bill is a dagger to Airbnb. So anyway, I'll just
because Airbnb
add that in.
reduces the housing stock for people to live.
Someone very close to him in the administration who founded Airbnb.
There you are. There you are. So Trump is on the warpath for Zoran Mamdani. In fact, Republicans are arguably for the midterms and beyond are going to use Mamdani. They're going to kind of paint him as some kind of communist. Meanwhile, he's doing so well in New York that people are clamoring to move back there. Let's take a look.
They really topped everything by a lot today. Yeah.
Mr. President, Zoran Mamdani said in an interview this week that he was open to being the poster child for socialist candidates. Are you worried about more socialist candidates across the United States?
I think it's a big threat to our nation, actually, because it's not socialism, it's really communism. They use the word social democrat because it sounds so nice, but it's really communism you're talking about. I think it's the biggest threat to our nation there is, maybe since our founding. That includes World War I, World War II, September 11th. It includes the Pearl Harbor attack. I think this is the biggest threat to our nation. People will smile when I say that, but the smart people are going to say, you know, he's probably right. It's basically introducing communism into the United States of America. There's never been anything so dangerous. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Whenever he says thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, I know that that's because he needs to go to the toilet. Just saying that.
Yeah.
Mamdani has quite a good response to this stuff. And, you know, I'm really feeling that this initial criticism of Mamdani's being too left was so short-sighted, because I don't think there is such a thing as too left. I mean, I think we're dealing with the far right, both in the US and around the world. But there isn't really a far left. I don't personally believe it exists. He did an interview with Jonathan Carl. Let's see what he said about this.
There was also a take, it's not just Democrats. You've probably heard what President Trump had to say about you and about the candidates you supported. And he warned that if socialists win, and he calls you communists, but you will start living in squalor. There'll be no food, no housing, no military, no law and order. There'll be nothing. And he had a few other choice words. By the way, he also said he still likes you. But what do you make of what he? I mean, the Republicans are going to make you the poster child for the Democratic Party.
Let them. We don't have to ask ourselves what life looks like if a socialist wins. I won last November, and over the course of these last 6 months, what we've delivered for working people are the very things we were told were impossible. We've delivered free childcare for 2-year-olds for the first time in New York City history. We've delivered tens of millions of dollars back to tenants who were taken advantage of by bad landlords. We've delivered 165,000 potholes being paved. And we've done all of these things while also delivering the lowest recorded crime in our city's history. That's what it looks like to have democratic socialism. And what you're seeing is that New Yorkers experienced this for 6 months and made the decision that they wanted to see more of it on the national stage as well.
I mean, he makes a very good point that, you know, judge me by my actions and what I deliver rather than name calling. That's quite fair, isn't it?
This is an incredibly interesting topic and discussion that we actually could do a whole show on, and maybe we should, because it is really not now, but I mean at some point, because there's a lot of layers to this. I mean, you have the Democratic establishment that is threatened by Mamdani, and you have the Republicans, what they're trying to do here. But if you recall, back in October, before Mamdani was elected, I talked about this exact point that Mamdani is making right now, which is that what I said back then, somebody can pull the tape, is that the Republicans were going to make him the poster child of the Democratic Party. They were going to say that socialists have taken over the Democratic Party, even though this is just the New York City mayor's race, but they were going to blow him up just like they did with AOC back in the day and others. You know, they're going to make him the face of the Democratic Party, and they're going to bet the farm on that. And they're doubling down now that 3 of his endorsed socialist candidates won their primaries. They are now going to say that this is communism, and it's going to spread throughout the Democratic Party, and the Democratic Party is going to become a socialist party, and that's very dangerous. And you hear many in the Democratic establishment say exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
And what I said back in October was the best antidote to that would be Mamdani's success in office. That if Mamdani does a good job and and makes people's lives better, and isn't this crazy, you know, Joseph Stalin as the Republicans are characterizing, they created this caricature of him, and that could result in many of his ideas and his policies, whether do you call them, socialism or whatever. I think they're just good government policies.
Right.
That would take that away from them. It would disarm.
Yes.
It would make Americans not so afraid of that label anymore, you know, of the socialist label. And, you know, and there you have Mamdani making that point, which is if I was so terrible and so dangerous and I was supposedly going to wreck New York, everyone was supposedly going to leave and everybody was going to be poor and the tax base was going to be gone. But look, we're doing great. People in New York are happy. His approval ratings are high. And I think that helps his people around the country. And I also said, I think I was the first person to say this, and I got criticism from many establishment Democrats for this post I made a month ago, which is I said that this is going to spread outside New York City, and you are going to see Democrats in primaries all over the country, in Philadelphia, in LA, in Seattle, seeking Mamdani's endorsement. He is going to become a kingmaker in many Democratic primaries. He's going to become more than just the mayor of New York City.
Yeah.
So even though he can never be president, he can be very influential on a national level.
Yeah. And he said that this week. He said that what he is doing can be rolled out nationally. I mean, look at Colorado on Tuesday with Milak Kiros, the Democratic Socialist there. She unseated Diana DeGette, right? The long-serving U.S. representative there.
Yeah. Michael Bennet lost, the establishment candidate in the governor's race.
Right.
I mean, that was a surprise to many people. I think I saw a stat. He was like the first, he's the first incumbent senator to run for an open governor's seat to lose a primary in 100 years.
Yeah. Yeah. This, I think, is a lesson, and I'm done with establishment Democrats. I'll be honest with you, I'm done with them. I've really, I'm not a Democrat.
You've been done with them.
Yeah, right. But I don't identify with those people. But I identify and I recognize that the richest people are getting richer, and regular people, working people, the middle classes, as they're often described, oddly in this country, are struggling. And I refer to it as a silent recession. I think people are leaning on their credit cards, and this is not going to end well. But we have to encourage people to vote, because it's only a mass tidal wave of voting and early voting and mail-in voting and all the things that is going to change America for the better. And Mamdani is right. And we're seeing Democratic Socialists across the country find bigger crowds and get more support. And it's because we've heard in our little section of saying the quiet parts out loud, the Republicans have no interest in the American people.
I think that Greg Kazar, who's one of my favorite members of Congress, who's the chair of the Progressive Caucus in the House, House Progressive Caucus, made a really good point on this. He was asked, he said, is this like the Tea Party movement within the Republican Party that sort of fractured the Republican Party during the Romney-McCain years, caused them to lose a couple of presidential elections, and ultimately led to Donald Trump? Is this like that for Democrats? And I thought that he made a great point. He said, the reason why he doesn't think that is because the Tea Party was a rebellion against the party itself and a separatist movement. And he said, we want to run the Democratic Party. We want to be the majority of the Democratic Party. We want to work within the party. We don't agree with the establishment on everything, but we're not trying to branch off and be a separatist movement. And in that respect, we're different than the Tea Party. I would just warn, I hope that Kazar speaks for most of them, because that's my main concern, is that we see the DSA say, we're not really Democrats, we're going to do our own thing. We're not going to work within the party structure. That could present a serious problem. That's where they lose me.
Right.
I hope they instead focus on running the Democratic Party instead of being a separatist movement.
Yes. We only have a minute left, so let's check in on the state fair that Donald Trump has invested millions of taxpayer dollars in and claims he's the only one that could do it. Let's see if anyone's shown up. Should we have a look? I mean, I just can't. It's
like
embarrassing.
It's a party.
It's a party, yeah. And Fox was trying to spin it and give the impression that it was round and that people were having a great time and everybody was there. And the reality is that this has been a disaster. And the truth is that people do not want to celebrate the 250th anniversary of a country that is in the state that it is. It's a state fair because it's in a state. And I really fear that, that it's such a shame that the timing of this anniversary of America coincides with this criminal, corrupt administration, fascist uprising being at the heart of American governance and therefore blowing all of the celebrations.
I mean, that's the terrible thing, really. The reality is if anyone else was president, this really would be a big deal that could unite the country and get everybody to show up at different events. But, a huge percentage of the country wants nothing to do with anything that Donald Trump is a part of because he makes it all about himself. And, by the way, the 4th of July, he's pushed back the fireworks to 11 p.m.
Yes.
He wants to break the Guinness Book of World Records for most fireworks. So it's going to go on for like 90 minutes.
Yeah.
Obviously, this is not very kid friendly or family friendly here. No. It's supposed to be like 104 degrees. It may rain. I mean, it's and they have to close the airport there in DC for like 12 hours to accommodate all, because he's got a military flyover and everything else going on. So again, he ruins everything. But I thought the last point I'll make is that Fox, they had the booth out there every day, and this fair is going on for 2 weeks. And Dean Cain, the former Superman actor, is sort of like the guy that's out there every day for Fox. He's a Fox contributor,
right?
Trying to make people believe that this is very popular, and he's just hyping it up every day. Oh, there's so many people out there. And one of the people I follow on social media, I forgot which person it was who said this, but I thought it was a great point. They said, "This is the best acting performance that Dean Cain has ever had in his life." Is out there at the fair this week pretending that it's a success.
Yeah, let's take a look at Fox celebrating the huge crowd sizes, shall we?
Happy early birthday, America. We're celebrating already at the Great American State Fair. Man, we've got thousands of people celebrating this birthday with us, Tommy. You and I had a chance to go out. We got to see some of the exhibits. I'm sure you got what I got, which was a lot of people going, "Hey, love to watch it on Fox." I hope a lot of them left the mall, went home and turned on their TV and are watching this right now.
Literally tens of people lining the walls of the state fair. Okay, we have to finish, but
that was like 7 p.m. on a Saturday. I mean, that's like prime time. That's not like 8 a.m. on a Tuesday.
No.
Yeah.
No, so. This is the reality. Look, if that is a barometer for the midterms, then I'm down. If this is how it's a bit like driving around the neighborhood to see how many signs there are outside for Trump versus somebody else. This is a great barometer. And I get a sense that people are kind of done with this regime, and we won't know until the votes are counted. So get out and vote. Ron, thanks a lot. Great to see you. We'll come back next Wednesday with another Uncovered. Check out our sponsors down below. Download the audio podcast that drops later tonight, and we'll see you next Wednesday. Thanks a lot, Ron.
See you next week, everyone.